One of the things that's plaguing societies today is the ability to traffic in untruths and in lies without repercussions. I have long held that a society that peddles lies or allows them to happen without repercussion is a society on a precipitous decline. There are those out in the world who are claiming that the earth is flat, or that the sun does not rise in the east, or other proven scientific facts and truths, and they're saying that they don't occur. And when they're challenged by select and courageous few, the usual response is, freedom of speech allows me to say whatever I want. Many, including oftentimes myself, see those people as just fringe, with outlandish theories. And most say to me, ignore them. Why are you paying attention to them? They're just looking for the attention that you're giving them. But here's the reason why. If we ignore those untruths, or even worse, if we allow those untruths to go unchallenged, well, then what we're doing is we are allowing facts to go unchecked, and we allow untruths to hold the floor and lies to have a seat at the table. Recently, there were claims that Israelis were raping Palestinian women in Gaza. It has been debunked. It is not true. It is patently false. But it was said to negate the claims that were verified and true of Palestinians who raped Israelis at the Nova Festival. Can we let these claims go unproven or unchecked? Can we let people traffic in them because of freedom of expression? The headmaster at my daughter's high school, Ariella Dubler-Furman, a former law professor, explained the methodology of pluralism that they institute at the Heschel School. She says, we welcome all voices, and we learn from different people and their perspectives. But we do not allow others to say that 4 + 4 = 10 just because they want to. There are rights and there are wrongs in our world. And when people traffic in things that aren't true, when people say the earth is flat or the sun rises in the west, then we have a responsibility. It feels like we're on the brink of a national divorce from truth. And I find it morally repugnant. And it has to stop. And what I claimed from the Bima earlier this year, and I still hold fast to, is that hypocrisy is the sibling of untruth. Hypocrisy is connected to lies through DNA. It's not something distant. They are intrinsically connected. And when people traffic in those levels of hypocrisy, it's a form of allowing the untruths to occur. I couldn't help but think to myself, what if we all had a little buzzer, some kind of an alarm we could walk around with, and when people were peddling lies or trafficking untruths, we just blasted it. We just hit it, and it said, that's an untruth. That's the ultimate fact checker. And all of us, by the way, are welcome to have opinions. Don't confuse opinions with facts. You and I can have vigorous debate as to when human life begins. You and I can have vigorous debate as to what is the best strategy for our economy. You and I can and should have vigorous debate over who we think might be best to lead our country or lead our corporation or lead an organization. Those are opinions. But the earth is round, and the sun rises in the east. And there are many other facts that cannot continue to be challenged. I wonder to myself, what if we stopped using the shofar just for 1 month a year, and we walked around with the shofar, and every single time someone trafficked in an untruth or an hypocrisy, we just yelled out, TEKIAH, and stopped them in their tracks. I thought of a few. Like if you cheered for the death of bin Laden, and then you condemned Israel for eliminating Nasrallah, you're a hypocrite. And TEKIAH. And if you claimed Israel has a right to defend itself, and Israel has the right and obligation to get its hostages back, and then you told Israel to stay out of Rafah, TEKIAH. And if you decry the indiscriminate bombardment of civilians in Gaza, but never once mentioned the continuous rocket assault on the land of Israel and its civilians, not only in the last year, but for the last 20 years. More than 30,000 rockets. And from October 8th, more than 9,000 from Hezbollah. Well, TEKIAH. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you have a shofar, and it's our job to stop the spreading of that hypocrisy and those untruths. May the sound of the shofar call up our courage to do just that. I have a few more of these hypocrisies and lies, and you are welcome to join in the chant of TEKIAH, much like a Baptist revival, if you like. If you demanded that the U.S. should divest from Israel, but you're okay funding UNRWA,
TEKIAH.
If you claimed that Israel committed war crimes with zero evidence, yet you turn a blind eye to the actual genocide of Jews in Israel by Hamas and by Hezbollah,
TEKIAH.
if you lament the death of children, as you should, but you don't condemn Hamas and Hezbollah for using them as human shields,
TEKIAH.
little louder. If you're supportive of any group that is gays, queers, or anything outwardly non-heterosexual for Hamas or Hezbollah,
TEKIAH.
if you are the recipient of a scholarship at a prestigious school that is funded by that school or by its donors like Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan or Apollo, and if you are the recipient of a scholarship from those schools and you are close to and connected and studying from those leaders of those organizations, and then you march and you condemn the power of Wall Street and greed,
TEKIAH.
if you ask for a boycott of Israel, and then you use Waze to drive to that boycott, and you use any Intel computer, or you call your friends and tell them about the boycott on a cell phone, or you take almost any generic pharmaceutical,
TEKIAH.
if you slam Donald Trump for saying there are good people on both sides, yet when it came to college campuses, you said, hey, there are some good kids out there protesting.
TEKIAH.
If you marched for George Floyd and you rallied to stop Asian hate, but you sat out when it came time to gather to denounce anti-Semitism,
TEKIAH.
if you were outraged, as I was, at the students at UCLA or Columbia University that went in and vandalized and pillaged classrooms and offices, but you downplayed January 6th,
TEKIAH.
if you're willing to acknowledge sexual violence penetrated against women in all spaces and times of the world, except on October the 7th,
TEKIAH.
if you chant ceasefire now without demanding the immediate release of the hostages,
TEKIAH.
if you argued for letting every minority define their own terms of identification, but you told the Jews what a Zionist is,
TEKIAH.
if you cried for the hungry in Yemen and didn't chastise them for fueling their rockets instead of feeding their children,
TEKIAH.
if you think that war must have equal number of casualties and refuse to note how much Israel makes paramount protecting its citizens, TEKIAH. If you think Israel must defend its right to exist, but you never question any other country's right to exist, TEKIAH. If you're silent when Israel is attacked, but you expect to be heard when Israel retaliates,
TEKIAH.
and lastly, if you think proportional retaliation should be based on the number of rockets that landed and not the number of rockets that were launched, then you're doing the math wrong, and TEKIAH.